G'day everyone and welcome back to War Thunder. Maybe you can tell, but my voice is a bit off. I've been quite sick over the past few days, but hopefully it holds out for this video. Today I'm in my G14? No, G10. This is one of the later BF109s. It's considered to be quite heavy and a bit fat. But to be honest, at this tier, you're sort of looking more at boom and zooming rather than turn fighting. So ideally with this plane in particular, you want to get a bit of altitude. And you need to be on top for your plane to work. So basically, you need to have some sort of energy advantage over every other plane in the match. And this is exactly what happens here. I'm pretty much at the highest point that players will be in the whole game. The enemy team, for some reason, didn't climb. I'm not entirely sure why, but you can see there those two P-47s are below me. Now, I'm pretty sure one was a P-47M. I know Baron was a P-47M. And I'm pretty sure the other one might be a P-47N, but I mean, I think if you pushed out the side climb a little bit, you could get somewhere. Now, I go for the head-on, and the P-47 evades, and now instead of continuing along straight, I decide to go into a slight vertical and try and energy trap the P-47. And it somewhat works. He chooses not to follow because I've basically baited him up for the Focke-Wulf 190. And now, instead of diving on those P-51s, I pitch up. I conserve my energy. And then I roll back on and turn that energy into speed, roll back on the P-51D, and as he starts to dive, I straighten out. I'm not going to lose my energy for one kill, because I want the win. Now, I go back for the P-47, potato shooting here, and I don't do crap except for a critical, which is okay. And then the enemy P-51 goes into a turn and blows all his energy, and that's one kill. Now this P-51 here is on low speed, he's trying to gain some speed. He could have had this speed if he had climbed a bit more, but he chose not to, and suffers the consequence. Now, the P-47 is on my tail again. I go into a vertical to conserve my energy, and to force either an evasion or a bait. So, if I go vertical and the P-47 takes the vertical, he'll lose his plane. At my cost, but he'll still lose it. And I've done my damage, so that's okay for me if I die. But he obviously chooses to evade. He's in a dogfight with the BF-109, and I thought he was baiting for me, so I had another go, and I missed. It does lock up a little bit, but I sort of try and deal with that. I try and stick to below 500 kilometers per hour, and if I exceed that, I normally store that energy in altitude. Now, the P-47 makes a big mistake here, and so do I. Now, the P-47 blew all his energy, and my aim was potato. Now, the P-47 is actually doing an okay job at evading, considered that he's really, really bad at turning, and more potato aim. Yeah. P-47 is not designed for turn fighting at all. But in spite of that, he's actually defensive flying and evading quite well. But the same can't really be said for this P-51. He sort of neg-Gs there, I get a tap into him, and I pull back up. Always storing that energy. Now, because the P-51 has blown a lot of his energy in evasive maneuvers, I know I definitely have the altitude advantage over him, and I can just roll back on him and finish the job without much of a hassle. keep an eye out for that P47, watch out for him, roll back on, and boom go the 20 mils. You only need one, and it's quite good. Very, very solid armament, especially for an energy fighter. You don't really expect good armament with an energy fighter. Like, somewhat can be said about the LA7 and its guns. I mean, they're okay, but they're no 650 cals. They've got the one-shot potential, but, 50 cals you can spray for days. And it's just like that with the G10. You can't really spray for days, but it's got the armament to do the job, and that's good enough. Now, this P51 has caught me on less energy than he does. So I evade him. I pull underneath him so that he'd have to compress. And then he turns and blows it all. So now I know I've got the advantage. I have the liberty to sort of casually sit behind him. Now, I do get a couple of sparks and a couple of hits, and he goes for the evasive, and he goes into a vertical and blows his speed. But that's when I'm out of cannons, so now I gotta be careful. So I pop my flaps, kill my throttle, try and get him to low speed, and let those lovely 13 mils do the work. And there's 4 kills. Now that I'm on the receiving, now that I've dealt the damage from altitude, you can sort of see why it's very important to climb. You need to really climb to do some actual damage. Obviously, don't climb too high. Don't be autistic about it, but know how to conserve what energy you have, and definitely be careful about what planes you're facing and who can turn with you and who can out energy you, outspeed you at altitudes, and then learn how to adapt to that. So if you see, for example, the P47 diving on you, you fly underneath it, so he has to pitch down further, and that increases his risk of compression. A good pilot will avoid situations where he may crash his plane to the ground, and as a result will go back into a climb and sort of leave you alone. A bad pilot, though, will try and turn fight with you after the first turn, like this bloke here. So he gets onto my 6, I go up, which makes him either go up or down. He chooses to go down, so now I actually have the energy advantage on him because he's blowing that much speed and that much energy. Goes back into a climb, thinking that he may have the energy, and he blows it. And I finish the job with like 13 mils. And that's an ace for me, just because I climbed. And that's a very easy GG. Now, I love what this P47 says in chat. It's quite amusing, I think. He started with the altitude advantage, wanted a 1v1, and lost because he was the one that switched targets. He could have just sat on me and kept boom and zooming me until I got so low on energy that I practically stalled into the ground. But he was so adamant on getting some sort of kill that he completely destroyed himself and any chance of him winning. And he could have probably done that because there were only three of us left. But there's a lesson for you guys. Climb, but don't climb too far. Just far enough for you to have the advantage over your enemy and for you to have an advantage to give you the victory. Take care, guys. Have a good one, and I'll catch you next time. Fuck.